What is going on, Pretender here, back with another Honkai Star guide, and today I'm here with the full build guide for one of the characters that will be rerunning in the 3.2 first half, being Jiaoqiu. So in this video, I'm going to be taking you over his kin Eidolons, then I'll be taking you over his best Lightcone options, followed by that will be best relic sets and Planar ornaments, and then finally Mainstat recommendations with Substat priorities. I plan on having a full build guide for every single character that is new or returning in 3.2. I already have a guide for practically the entire 3.2 first half now. Casterus you can check out, Hugh you can check out, Acheron you can check out, and you are now watching the Jiaoqiu guide. And soon there will be one for Anoxa, and for Dr. Ratio I am linking the one that I already made this year for a build guide for him that you can check out right now. That's all I want to say before I get into the video. If you guys found this video helpful in any way, shape, or form, drop a like, would be greatly appreciated. If you're new or haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell icon for future videos like this, along with all other types of Star content, and let's get straight into the video. The Jiaoqiu is a fire character following the path of Nihility. His basic attack deals fire damage equal to 100% of Jiaoqiu's attack to a single target enemy. His skill deals fire damage equal to 150% of Jiaoqiu's attack to a single target enemy, and fire damage equal to 90% of Jiaoqiu's attack to adjacent targets, with 100% base chance to inflict 1 stack of Ashen Rose on primary targets. His ultimate sets the number of Ashen Rose stacks on the enemy targets to the highest number of Ashen Rose stacks present on the battlefield, then activates a zone and deals fire damage equal to 100% of Jiaoqiu's attack to all enemies. While inside the zone, enemy targets receive 15% increased ultimate damage, with a 60% base chance of being inflicted with 1 stack of Ashen Rose when taking action. While the zone exists, this effect can trigger up to 6 times, and for each enemy target, it can only trigger once per turn, and the trigger count resets every time Jiaoqiu uses ultimate. The zone will last for 3 turns and decreases by 1 at the start of this unit's every turn. If Jiaoqiu is knocked down, the zone will also be dispelled. His talent: when Jiaoqiu hits an enemy with basic attack, skill, or ultimate, there is a 100% base chance to inflict 1 stack of Ashen Rose on them. At 1 stack, increase the damage received by the enemy by 15%, then each subsequent stack increases this by 5%. Ashen Rose is capped at 5 stacks and lasts for 2 turns. When an enemy target is afflicted with Ashen Rose, they are also considered as being burned at the same time, taking fire dot equal to 180% of Jiaoqiu's attack at the start of each turn. Technique: after using Technique, creates a special dimension that lasts for 15 seconds. After entering combat with enemies in the special dimension, deals fire damage equal to 100% of Jiaoqiu's attack to all enemies, with a 100% base chance of applying 1 Ashen Rose stack. Only one dimension created by Alice can exist at the same time. For his bonus traces, is A2. When the battle starts, immediately regenerates 15 energy. Is A4. For each 15% of Jiaoqiu's effect hit rate that exceeds 80%, additionally increases attack by 60% up to 240%. And as A6, while the zone exists, enemies entering combat will be inflicted with Ashen Rose. The number of stacks applied will match the highest number of Ashen Rose stacks possessed by any unit while the zone is active, with a minimum of 1 stack. For his Eidolons, is E1. Allies deal 40% increased damage to enemy targets afflicted with Ashen Rose. Whenever inflicting Ashen Rose on enemy targets via a trigger the talent's effect, additionally increases the number of Ashen Rose stacks applied this time by 1. Is E2. When an enemy target is afflicted with Ashen Rose, increases the multiplier for the fire dot dealt by Ashen Rose to this target by 300%. Is E4. When the zone exists, reduces the enemy target's attack by 15%. And is E6. When an enemy target gets defeated, their accumulated Ashen Rose stacks will transfer to the enemy with the lowest number of Ashen Rose stacks on the battlefield. The maximum stack limit of Ashen Rose increases to 9, and each Ashen Rose stack reduces the target's all-type res by 3%. Taking a look at the best Lightcone options for Jiaoqiu, his best one is obviously going to be his own signature Lightcone, which provides the wearer a 60% increase to effect hit rate. After the wearer uses basic attack, skill, or ultimate to attack the enemy target, there is a 60% base chance to inflict unarmored on this target, and while in the unarmored state, the enemy target receives 10% increased damage for 2 turns. If the target is under a dot state inflicted by the wearer, there is a 60% base chance to upgrade the unarmored state inflicted by the wearer to the coordinate state, which additionally increases the damage dealt that target receives by 14%, lasting for 2 turns, and during this period, the wearer cannot inflict unarmored on the target. So Jiaoqiu is a debuff that does want a good amount of effect hit rate, so this Lightcone giving you 60% for free is very, very nice. On top of that, his role is to debuff the enemies to make them take more damage, and this Lightcone gives them access to another damage dealt increase for your team when the debuff is on that enemy with the unarmored state, so you will actually be dealing more damage to the enemies you do attack. And on top of that, as his kit does say, when they are inflicted with Ashen Rose, it does count as dot, and they do take the damage considered being burnt. So you are actually able to upgrade that unarmored state to the corner state to make them take an additional 14% damage. So on top of the ultimate vulnerability he provides, and also the fact that he has general vulnerability in his talent, you are now also getting even more debuffs to make enemies take more damage thanks to this Lightcone, which is why this Lightcone is his best option. Another really good Lightcone is the Pearls Lightcone, which has a 60% base chance to ensnare an enemy that is not already ensnared when you do hit that enemy, and ensnared enemies have their defense reduced by 12% for 1 turn, and at S5 it is 100% base chance with a 16% defense shred. So Jiaoqiu doesn't have any defense shreds on his actual base kit, so this is going to still be pretty good that you can use, as it is just free defense shreds to make your team do more damage. Unfortunately, this Lightcone doesn't provide anything like effect hit rate or anything that would help with the stats, but it does give him an extra debuff to make your team do more damage, which is his main role, and which is why this Lightcone is another good option you can use. Another Lightcone you can use is the Eyes of the Prey Lightcone, which gives 20% effect hit rate and increases dot by 24%. At an S5, it's a 40% increase to effect hit rate and a 48% increase to dot. Not really much to talk about here. It's a 40% increase to effect hit rate. As I mentioned, you do want to build him with effect hit rate, so that's going to be very, very good. And he does also do dot, but you don't really focus on his dot unless you do have E2, because at E2 is when he gets this big increase to dot damage, which actually turns him into a proper dot character. I would not ever recommend anyone to use Jiaoqiu as a dot character unless you do have E2, because the actual burn does negative damage without that E2. So if you do have E2, this is a good Lightcone you can use, and it's still just generally good because it is a free effect hit rate stat stick, which is why it's another good option you can use. Another good option you can use, especially if you are pairing Jiaoqiu on a team where someone else has a defense shred, so another debuffer, would be before the tutorial mission starts, which gives 20% effect hit rate, and when the wearer attacks defense reduced enemies, regenerates 4 energy, and at S5 it's a 40% increase to effect hit rate with 8 energy regenerated when attacking defense reduced enemies. Unfortunately, Jiaoqiu does not actually have a defense reduction in his base kit, he just has vulnerability, which is why I mentioned it becomes a lot better if you do have someone else on the team, such as Pela, Silverwolf, Black Swan, and so on, that also reduce defense, so you can put them in that defense reduction state to where they can actually have Jiaoqiu hit them to get the second part of this Lightcone, because otherwise it just becomes a 40% increase to effect hit rate, which is actually why it's another reason you can use it even if you are not running him alongside a defense shredding unit, because it's still helping you with the effect hit rate stat, which is why it's another option you can use. And if you do have another character on the team that is running a defense shred source, it becomes that much better. A Lightcone that is mainly always going to be used in pure fiction when paired with Acheron just to get alt refreshes is going to be the Herd of Shop Lightcone, which increases the wearer's break effect by 20%. When the wearer uses their alt split, increases dot dealt by the wearer by 24% for 2 turns. When a target enemy suffering from dot imposed by the wearer is defeated, regenerates 4 energy for the wearer. And at S5, it's 40% break effect with 48% increase to dot dealt when you do use the ultimate, and 6 energy when you defeat an enemy that has dot imposed by the wearer. The reason this is mainly a Lightcone you do use in pure fiction is because it's going to help you get a lot more stacks for your Acheron, because you are refreshing your ultimate a lot more. In pure fiction and Apocalyptic Shadow, when you are pairing him with Acheron, usually by the time you run into the 6 limit that is in his kit, because you can't always have the actual application in his ultimate to stay up for the entire battle, so there's going to be a certain point where when enemies act, they won't actually get back on charge or they won't be inflicted with anything. But by the time that actually happens, he usually has his ultimate and you can refresh the duration. But in pure fiction, where enemies are constantly attacking you a lot, since there's so many turns you go through, it's something that you're going to run into an issue a lot, especially with Acheron, which is the main teammate he does have. So a lot of cases, you will actually not be able to have the full time where every time enemy attacks in pure fiction, you get a charge for your Acheron. This Lightcone helps a lot with that because he is able to inflict Ashen Rose, which is considered a burn as well. So when you defeat the enemy that has a dot imposed by the wearer, which they always will, you are constantly getting energy for your Jiaoqiu to help him refresh his ultimate as fast as possible. And so with those refreshes, you can constantly get your stacks for Acheron even more, which is why this is another Lightcone you can use. For some of the best relic sets for Jiaoqiu, for his role, one of the best ones is actually going to be 4-piece of the Eagle set, which 2-piece gives 10% wind damage, which is useless since he doesn't actually do wind damage. But it's for the 4-piece where after the wearer uses their ultimate, their action is advanced forward by 25%. This is really good because it lets you act faster and get energy back to actually let you refresh your ultimate more, and the more debuffs you can apply on enemies, that's going to be good to keep debuff time on them and also have more energy for your Jiaoqiu, as it's actually pretty easy to get energy back to keep up the ultimate uptime. And since you're attacking more, if you are running it with Acheron, which you practically always will, you're going to be able to inflict even more debuffs to give her more stacks. And this will, again, with the more energy you can get, you can refresh the duration of the ultimate to keep constantly applying stacks on the enemy's turns as well, which is going to be fantastic for Acheron especially. And it will also just help you accelerate your rotations a lot with them, which is why it's just a very, very good option you can use. And if you pair it with other action advance effects, it becomes a lot more powerful. Unfortunately, past that 4-piece, you are just kind of working with something like 2-piece speed, so 2-piece hacker space, and also 2-piece relieved ordeal to get higher breakpoints on him. Or you could also combine 2-piece of one of the speed sets and do 2-piece of one of the attack percent sets, since he does scalp attack, so 2-piece hero set works. You could also do 2-piece of the Soric set. Same thing applies to the 2-piece of the dot set, and also 2-piece of musketeers. You can also combine 2-piece of one of those and do 2-piece of the debuff set, since when you do debuff an enemy, it will be considered that, so the 2-piece debuff set does work. And I repeat this again, I only recommend doing 4-piece of the dot set if you are having him at E2. As I mentioned previously, pre-E2, the dot effect he does have is practically useless, since it's not meant for damage and his main role at pre-E2 is just going to be a debuffer. 2-piece, 12% attack, 4-piece for every dot the enemy target is afflicted with, the wearer will ignore 6% of defense when dealing damage to it, and it is valid for a max of 3 dots. So if you do have him E2 and you do put him on a team with Kafka and other dot units with units to buff the dot, then this would be the relic set you would use because it's going to be the best for his actual dot damage. Once again, I only recommend doing this if you do have him E2 and you are putting him on a dot team. If you have him E2 and you're still using it with Acheron, you're probably better off just doing 4-piece of the Eagle set or 2-piece, 2-piece. But if you are running him on a dot-based team, then 4-piece of this does work, again, if you have E2. For his Planar Ornaments, so you do have a few options personally, and my favorite one is to just run Von Walk on him, which gives 5% energy regeneration rate, and when the wearer's speed reaches 120 or higher, the wearer's action is advanced forward by 40% immediately upon entering battle. This is really good because with a proper build Jiaoqiu, this will allow you to go first and outspeed your entire team practically always, and will let you skill and throw up the ultimate right away, which is going to be great because now you have the ultimate up, you have the Acheron roll stacks going up, the vulnerability is inflicted on the enemies, the ultimate vulnerability is inflicted on the enemies, and again, the extra 5% energy regeneration rate will further help you accelerate the rotation you would be doing to get your ult back, as you are getting more energy back. And so this is one of the best options you can use because again, it helps you set up right away. Now if you aren't doing that, you can actually opt to do one of these supportive sets to just buff your main DPS or primarily Acheron. So Lushaka also works for the 5% energy regeneration rate, and if the wearer is not the first character in the team lineup, the character that is the first character on the team lineup gets a 12% increase to attack. Their Hyper Carry will just be getting a free 12% attack, while Jiaoqiu still gets 5% energy regeneration rate. So that's another thing you can do. This also does apply to just the other supportive sets, so Broken Keel for 10% crit damage to everyone if you do have 30% or higher effect res. Same thing also does apply to just running Ageless. You give everyone 8% attack, while Jiaoqiu gets 12% max HP. Those are options you can do, and another thing you can do that gives him attack, which this is maybe one I'd recommend if you are running him more as a DPS side, which again would be E2 as a dot character because his actual damage is whatever. The dot is where he can actually do damage, but only at E2, and that is if you actually run a Pan Cosmic set, which gives 10% effect hit rate. Meanwhile, the wearer's attack increases by an amount that is equal to 25% of the current effect hit rate up to a maximum of 25%. With how you want to build Jiaoqiu, you practically would be getting the full effect of this, and you're also getting an extra 10% and it's just free attack. If you're not running him as a DPS with the E2 and dot and you don't want to increase the dot by increasing his attack, then I'd highly recommend just doing Von Walk or one of the supportive sets for your actual main DPS. But if you do have him E2 and you want to increase his dot even more, then you can use Pan Cosmic set, as it's going to be great. But in most cases, I would definitely recommend just going with one of the supportive sets or especially Von Walk. For the main stats on the relics, for the body, you want to run effect hit rate. For the feet, you want speed. For the orb, you want fire and damage. And for the link rope, you can do energy regeneration rate, primarily, always, if you are running with a debuffer role. If you are doing a E2 dot setup, you can do attack, but I'd still recommend usually always going energy regeneration rate. And if you're not doing E2, and you're not really going for the dot increase, then energy regeneration rate would be the way to go always. For the substats, first, you want to prioritize getting effect hit rate to 140% at least to get the debuff off a lot, and also to max out the actual traits he does have, giving him up to a 240% increase to attack, which is why attack can be a bit diluted, but some extra sources still do help. But you do want to make sure you do hit 140% regardless of what build you are doing. If you're doing it as a debuffer, you still want to aim for 140% at least, and if you are running him as an E2 dot DPS, you still want to hit 140. Past that, you want to have as much speed as possible. You just want to make it to where you do ensure you are outspeeding your entire team. to let Xiaoqiu himself set up first. So this will depend on what team you are running him, but you just want to make sure you have enough speed, and if you have on walk it becomes easier. You just want to make sure you have at least breakpoint, and then you go further to make sure you outspeed your entire team, and he does go first. And past that, since nothing else will really benefit him, you still can get more attack percent rolls. So again, first you want to get 140% effect hit rate, past that much speed as you possibly can to ensure he outspeeds your entire team, and then more attack percent can work. And then if you really want, you can go for some survivability stats so he doesn't get CC'd, like effect res or just some HP to be a little more tanky. And if that is the full build guide for Xiaoqiu, hope you guys found the video helpful. If you did, drop a like, would be greatly appreciated. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell icon for future videos like this along with all other types of style content. Peace out.